this thing happened here where Tim Sheridan, who was a writer that I don't know, he'll have to excuse me. His reputation does not precede him. I do not know Tim Sheridan. But somebody sent me a link of him flipping out in the video. I don't know if the video, he's now blocked me and just about everybody in ComicsGate, which I guess is serves his purpose somehow. But he is writing some Alan Scott Green Lantern mini series, but possibly soon to be mini series when it gets canceled. And we're like in a desperate spot here. We're in a really desperate spot in the mainstream. It used to be that ComicsGate was mostly ignored. No, at first ComicsGate was overreacted to. I remember like all of these people, really sad, like disappointing kind of thing where somebody, and I imagine it was probably one of the milkshake girls, started this whole thing like comics, they're for everybody. And they would do this whole thing where everybody had to recite this weird like oath that comic books are for everybody. I could probably find that somewhere. And all of these fucking these drones, they all repeated it. They all retweeted, comic books are for everybody. And it was like there were 4 or 5 lines about how comic books are for everybody. But really, what they were saying is they're for everybody except for conservatives. It was a weird gaslighting thing where, they were basically saying that comics are basically for everybody except for those people whose politics have made it so that the heroes that they grew up with would punch them in the face, which is what we heard Andy Corey say a few times. Very disappointing. DC editor Andy Corey. So they have this kind of ironic thing. Comic books are for everybody except for you. Like there wouldn't be a need to say something like that if they weren't making a point that they're not for you. It's really strange. So we saw a lot of people saying that, and then ComicsGate was kind of in its infancy then. We kind of looked at that and we're like, Jesus Christ, settle down, everyone. You're making bad comics. People are pointing out that you're making bad comics. People are pointing out that you are explicitly hiring people based on their identity. You're hiring, you're looking, you're seeking out people who you would call marginalized. And you're going, we want to hire you, especially you. Well, what if they're not very good? It doesn't matter. We just kind of want to hire people who are marginalized. We have quotas to fill suddenly. We want to be able to tell people that we have as many Black people, as many disabled people, as many gay people, as many trans people. How do you have that many trans people working in comics? And all of them are assholes, every single one of them. How does this happen? Well, you have to deliberately seek these people out, and they're making really bad comics, and they're saying weird shit to the fans on the internet. This was how ComicsGate all kind of came to be. Now, eventually, ComicsGate, because this problem was so explicit, it was so obvious to normal people. Like normal people who didn't read comics, who were looking in on the comic book industry, couldn't help but notice that things were awry, that things had gotten weird, the comics were bizarre. Every now and then, like somebody would kind of go, when did comic books, like a normal person, like a writer, would from another industry, would say, when did comics become like politically poisonous? And it was like, oh, thank you for like noticing, because like we live in a perpetual state of like being gaslit that this is normal and that comics, they're for everybody, and all of this insanity. We have to kind of remind ourselves as a community, as a group here, that no, we're all experiencing the same thing, and it's really, really weird, and it's wrong. What's going on is weird and it's wrong, and it's harmful to comics, and comics just aren't as good as they used to be, and they have been taken over by activists, and all this stuff is real. It's actually happening, and outsiders looking in noticed the same thing, which was really reassuring. Because of this phenomenon, ComicsGate grew to be pretty big, right? And the writers and weirdos and mainstream comics who were actively if they weren't the activists, they were protecting these activists. They decided what they'd better do is stop talking about us. which, because they said, well, we're just giving them attention. They're just here to get attention. No, we're here to get the comic book industry back. We don't want your attention. We just want this to stop. And so the comics are good again. But they were like, they're just looking for attention. So we'll stop mentioning them. Every time we mention them, we're going to use asterisks in the place of vowels so that we're not searchable and, nobody can contest what we're saying. And I got to admit, in my heart of hearts, as I look back, that suited me just fine. Because I'm ComicsGate, and so are my friends. And I don't want these people harassing them all the time while pretending they're the victims of harassment. The reality is, these people, us, we're the indigenous fans of comics. We were here before these creeps. We were buying comics at a time when the comic book industry was incredibly successful. These people have been shooed away, pushed away to the sidelines. They've been insulted. They've been made to feel unwelcome because, amazingly, because of their political preferences, because of the color of their skin, and because they're heterosexual. Weird. We just live in a weird, creepy time right now. So it kind of suited me, though, at the end of the day, to have these people shut the fuck up about ComicsGate, because our aims turned from, pointing out what's going on over there all the time. That was mostly what we were doing, was making videos going, what the hell is this? And then it kind of became, no, we're going to try to make our own comic books. We want kind of a divorce. You know what I mean? Like, let's let them do whatever they're going to do. We really feel like they're in trouble and they're going to kind of crash into a mountain. I'm the kind of guy who goes, look, they're going to hurt themselves. Like, at this point, I don't want to be around when they do. Or if they do, I'll be there on the sidelines to point and laugh. But I mean, when you see like an industry or a company that's clearly just headed, there's a mountain in the way or an iceberg in their path, and they're clearly going to hit the iceberg, and it's because of their own actions. I'm the type of guy who just goes, let me off of this vehicle right here. Right here. I don't want to be here for when the whole thing goes down. So, I'll ignore you. Let me go do my own thing. And let ComicsGaters do their own thing, and we just won't bother each other. Every now and then there'll be something kind of overt that we have to talk about. I mean, we just have to. We have no choice. But for the most part, yeah, it's kind of good to not think about what they're doing so that we can just focus on what we're doing and try to make better indie comics and reach more people with our comics. But then this shit happens right here where it's like, what is this, 2017 again? Is this 2017? Writer Tim Sheridan begs followers to purchase gay Alan Scott the Green Lantern series to own ComicsGate. Okay. This video, can I watch this video? I might not be able to because I'm blocked. And somebody probably didn't.
Hey, I'm Tim Sheridan, writer of DC's Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, and I just opened up a box of advanced copies of issues.
Why does he look? See, this is the creepy thing about it. It's like he's about to just spit hatred. He's about to just spit hatred. Look how friendly he looks. Look at his eyebrows. They're up here in the sky here. He's like, hi, everyone. I'm an impish little friend of yours. And it's like he belongs on PBS, but he's about to just say the most hateful shit in the world.
I am here to ask you a favor.
Oh.
The book comes out next DC.
I hope it's not that kind of a favor, Tim.
Tuesday, October 24th. But already the haters and the queerphobes.
I have a favor to ask you.
Are out in force, doing everything they can to see this out next DC Tuesday, October 24th. But already the haters and the queerphobes are out in force, doing everything they can to see that this book tanks. They use code.
Well, I mean, to be fair, Tim, this is such gaslighting. I'm just going to let it go. Who cares?
They make it sound like they have legit problems with a book they haven't read yet. But the truth is, they just don't like that there's a queer hero in the upper ranks of the DCU.
You're no queer hero. Hey, listen to this. Dude, you released like 8 pages of this book. Nice freeze frame. We read the 8-page preview, Tim. That's all it is.
The only way we can shut these people down is to make this book an undeniable success. The only way
That's good news. I didn't realize that the only way you could shut down ComicsGate was by making this comic book an undeniable success, because it isn't going to be an undeniable success. None of these books are. It's not even really your fault, like, Tim. Like, an Alan Scott like miniseries, like, nobody wants it. It's not even that he's queer or any of these things. It's just nobody wants this. Like, we couldn't have sold an Alan Scott comic book at the height of Green Lantern Mania. So, I mean, if you're banking on this book being a success in order to sort of thwart ComicsGate, like, that's cool. I'll take your bet.
to prove to all the big publishers that there's a huge market for authentic stories about LGBTQIA.
There isn't. There is not a huge market. There's a tiny market for that. Tiny, minuscule. I mean, there might be a big market for it overall, but then, like, a big market within comics for queer stories that are rated PG about superheroes from the Golden Age. Okay, that's a very, very tiny market.
Plus characters, and that these stories are for everyone is to
For everyone. Except for ComicsGate. They're not for you. These stories are for everyone. They're for everyone. It's like a mantra. But it's always being said by somebody who is trying to exclude, somebody who is preaching hatred. It's for everyone.
buy the heck out of books like this. This one's only 6 issues, and each one has a few variants. So I'm asking, if you have the means, buy them up. Buy extras to give to people you think really need to read it. Now, you might say this sounds like a great way for Tim Sheridan to make a bundle in royalties. Well, no.
No, because you have to sell 40,000 copies of a comic book before you receive penny one in royalties. The trade paperbacks are another situation. When the trade paperback comes out, I mean, it'll sell a few. You do make some royalties on trade paperbacks, but I got to be honest with you, it isn't very much. It'll be about $1,000 for this, and it's going to be a one-time payment, because this is not the kind of thing that people are going to continue to buy over and over again. It might be about $1,000, Tim. I don't think you're going to hit the threshold of royalties at DC. It's sad, man. It would have before, I guess. Like, this book would have failed and still made royalties 20 years ago.
I won't make a penny, because every single royalty I receive from these 6 issues will go straight to a charity that's very important to me and that I've supported for a long time, the Elton John AIDS Foundation.
How is changing the sexuality of a hero authentic? It isn't, really. It's just that the thing about it is that they wanted to make a character gay at DC. They wanted to kind of experiment early on with the idea of queering superheroes. And so they did so with a hero that nobody cared about, And that was the attitude back then. They thought it was the least risky thing to make Alan Scott gay, because, like, nobody cares about Alan Scott, Hold on a second. Let's get back to this guy.
Works to prevent HIV stigma and provide compassionate care for all communities.
That's
I am
nice.
asking you to join the Corps.
Okay, Alan Scott is not in the Corps, and that ring is Hal Jordan's ring. Would it be so hard for you, Tim, fake geek girl, to actually get one of Alan Scott's rings? Because they make them. They make the model of the ring that Alan Scott wears. But that is, Jon Stewart wears that ring, and Hal Jordan wears that ring. Alan Scott has a ring that looks very much like his lantern on his finger. He's not connected to the Green Lantern. He's not Owen. He didn't swear an oath to the Guardians. He didn't do any of that. Like, he's his own superhero, called the Green Lantern, but not really related to. Why wouldn't you just get, like, if I were like the writer of Alan Scott and I were making some like weird video like this, like, hooray, I would get Alan Scott's ring and I'd wear it. just to show, like, no, I completely know, like, all about Alan Scott. Would you rather be writing Hal Jordan? And you got all the toys. You have Hal Jordan's power battery next to your Alan Scott toys up here. Get Alan Scott's power battery, dude. They're not the same. These aren't the same character. They're completely different. Something happened called the Silver Age. Back around 1959. A better time.
If you care about truth and justice, about shining a light in the darkness, if you think comics are...
If you hate Ethan Van Sciver and all of his friends so much, go and buy my terrible, weird comic book right now. Send a message to them. And this is like precisely what, these same people accuse us of doing. You sell your comic book based on hate. You tell them that, the only reason to buy Cyberfrog is because you hate. No, that's what these guys do. This isn't what I do. I say buy Cyberfrog because it's awesome. And it is. Even my haters have to admit that Cyberfrog is good now. It's very funny, people who don't like ComicsGate, but who did actually read Cyberfrog, I guess like a hate read, have to admit it's good. I mean, it is what it is. I don't have to sell it by going, you know what? You want to send Tim Sheridan a message? You want to send Tim Sheridan over at DC Comics? You want to send DC Comics a message right now that comic books are for everyone? Fuck them! Buy Cyberfrog! I know that's like a caricature of what they think we do here, but I mean, mostly we're just like, what the hell is going on, man? What are you doing over there? I have a very clear and concise message about comics. People like this are fucking them up. I mean, listen, Alan Scott was not gay, but now that he is, he gets to be your hobby horse. He gets to be like your cudgel to beat the shit out of your political enemies. Who said you could do that, asshole? Like, seriously, who said you could do that? I mean, what the fuck? I knew the Nodell family. I knew them. They were personal friends of mine. You are no Marty Nodell. Marty Nodell and his wife used to play with Baby Hunter at conventions. They always sat next to us. They lived in Tampa, Florida. We went to all the same shows. And they were such good people. They were so kind. They died very close to each other. I guess I'm glad about that. Because they were clearly in love. And I don't think they would have done well without each other. It's probably why they went so close together. But they used to play with Hunter. We'd bring a playpen to conventions because Hunter was so little. And she would just pick him up. And, Marty would give him little Doughboy toys. Pillsbury Doughboy, which he also created Green Lantern and the Pillsbury Doughboy. And later on, I went on to draw Green Lantern and become the Pillsbury Doughboy. So we have a lot in common. It's unbelievable. All right. So moving on here. Who said you could do this, though? Like, this isn't a character that you created. This isn't a character that you created that you get to beat the shit out of your enemies with. Create your own character. Like, if I want to beat the shit out of my political enemies with Cyberfrog, I can do it if I want to because he's my character. Nobody gets to tell me what to do with him. Create your own thing if this is your attitude.
Are and should continue to be for everyone. Or if you just want to force these ComicsGate trolls back onto the bridge they crawled out.
You just said comic books should be for everyone.
From, please support our book and send a message that the bullying and the lies and the hate have to stop. Everyone deserves to see themselves in comics.
No, they don't. No, they don't, dude. You should not be in comics. Nobody like you should be in comics. People that are much better than you should be in comics. People should not get to see themselves in comics. That is a feminine attitude that does not belong in masculine fiction. This is what women want. Women want to see themselves. That's why, as I said, the Hallmark Channel is what it is. Twilight is what it is. Even Harry Potter is feminine, even though it's a male character. These are characters that are ciphers that people can project themselves onto so they can imagine the adventure is happening to them. That's not what these characters are. People should see better versions of humanity in comics. They shouldn't see themselves. They should see aspirational qualities within human beings that everyone can relate to. I thought comics were for everyone. Now comics are unique experiences for types of people based on their race, their gender, their identity, their sexual preference. No, this idea that people deserve to see themselves in comics. What the hell is this shit? Who is Superman? And yet everyone loves Superman. Who sees themselves in Superman, you idiot? Who sees themselves in Batman? People don't see themselves in these characters that have lasted 100 years. Nearly 100 years. They see what they would like to be. And it has nothing to do with their sexuality. It has nothing to do with their skin color. And as soon as we let this attitude into comics, they started to shrink and die. This idea of representation, they started to shrink and die. Start telling stories that everyone can relate to. If comics truly are for everyone, stop focusing so intently on tiny little parts of the population and pandering to them specifically based on things they can't control, based on things they don't need to be proud of. It's just part of who they are. Strange attitudes that permeate comics right now. And it comes along with a heaping dollop of hatred, too. Hate this other group. The hypocrisy is pungent. It's unbelievable. Meanwhile, ComicsGate's all about love.
Everyone needs allies. And if you're an ally, now is the time to step up. We outnumber them.
No, you don't. You're like, you don't, dude. You're like 2.5% of the population. You definitely do not outnumber people who aren't like you. You definitely don't. And if you outnumber, if people who hold your political, by the way, if you do outnumber us now in the comic book industry, I wouldn't be surprised. It would explain quite a few things. It might be true. But no, it isn't. You don't outnumber people. Your persuasion, your viewpoint does not outnumber people who disagree with you. And the other thing is, maybe don't make it us versus them when you're working on selling a corporate product like Green Lantern for DC Comics. This is the kind of thing that would ordinarily cost you your job. You shouldn't be allowed to do this. Did DC approve of this? This would have gotten you yelled at not too long ago.
Pool our power, vote with our wallets, and beat these assholes. Add as many of these 4 variant covers for Alan Scott, the Green Lantern, to your pull list today. Pick them up in store next week, Tuesday the 24th. Thank you so much.
What a shithead. What a complete and total shithead. ComicsGate lives in this guy's brain. Rent-free. And meanwhile, we're not really even doing anything right now. But here's the situation. We're not doing anything to bother this guy. But here's the situation. Preview of this book came out. And in the preview, this guy has Alan Scott being brought into J. Edgar Hoover's office. Now, there's a historical rumor about J. Edgar Hoover, who was the head of the FBI, a Federal Bureau of Investigation here in the United States. In fact, he founded the FBI, and he ran it for a long time, like I think well into the 70s. When did he die? But he was the head of the FBI. Oh, he was like secretly gay. There are rumors about this. It could be true. It could not be true. But I mean, it's worked its way into pop culture like so much so now that it might as well be true. And this preview came out where you've got J. Edgar Hoover revealing that he has photographic evidence that Alan Scott is gay. Alan Scott would be closeted here in the 1940s. I've got photographs of you taking selfies. By the way, Tim, people did not do this in the 1940s. This is something that they started to do. They started to do about 15 years ago, taking selfies of yourself in the mirror. Guys didn't hold brownie cameras up to the mirror. That isn't something that would have happened because there was a flash that would go off, and the flash would have obscured this entire image. This isn't Tim. Cameras back then had flashes, and so you couldn't take a picture of yourself in the mirror because it would be obscured by an enormous glare. Nobody did this. This is something that people are able to do now because they have cell phone cameras that you can turn the flash off. Nobody held a camera up to the mirror and took pictures of themselves and did selfies. Have you ever seen that? Is that ever... It's like, I don't know why that bothers me. It just does. It's just like fucking like, I don't know. But anyway, he's got pictures of Alan Scott with his boyfriend, and he says, I told you I get what I want. Oh, also, we're having a little get-together in Forest Hills this weekend. You'll come. Clyde, which is his assistant, J. Edgar Hoover's assistant, Clyde Tolson, supposedly his partner, we'll give you the details on your way out. And Alan, ... bring the combat boots. Okay. This would be called sexual harassment. If this were a woman, if Alan Scott was a woman, this whole thing by a man in power would be sexual harassment. The idea here would be that this is sexual blackmail. J. Edgar Hoover is basically saying, you're coming to my party and you're going to be sexy like this at my party. Bring your boots. Because he's wearing combat boots in the picture, in case you can't tell. ComicsGate, some ComicsGaters saw this preview, reacted to it. Like, this is disgusting. You're basically saying J. Edgar Hoover is sexually blackmailing Alan Scott. I'm sorry, I don't see how it's how that could not be read into this. If it isn't the case, it certainly reads like it's the case. It certainly is, dripping with innuendo, as they say. And we could just a ton of gaslighting. Like, that's not what happened. That's not what I was doing here. I can't believe I have to post this. Says Tim Sheridan, who, by the way, this doesn't look like Tim Sheridan. It doesn't look like the same guy that we saw there. Must be an old picture. I can't believe I have to post this, but no, Alan Scott does not have sex with J. Edgar Hoover in our book. Spoiler alert. Hoover blackmails GL into working more closely with the JSA. Yes, Hoover is creepy, but so are the a-holes posting misleading BS to keep you from reading. Not to spoil anything, but to be even clearer, Hoover tries to blackmail GL. Hoover trying to blackmail a prominent figure with compromising intel? Unheard of. Yeah, but he didn't try to fuck any of them. Or did he? Tim, how can you lie like this? When you say Hoover didn't have sex with a Green Lantern, okay, that's your story, though. He certainly is trying to. Spoiler alert, according to you, he doesn't succeed. Well, that's good. But you've got him sexually blackmailing Alan Scott in this story. It's clear as day, dude. Sitting there and saying, people are lying a-holes. They're saying that you're writing the story. This is your story. You wrote this. And it's fairly clear what you're trying to say. It's fairly clear what the innuendo is here. It's fairly clear that J. Edgar Hoover is inviting him to a party, and saying, bring your boots. His boyfriend is going to be running it, his supposed boyfriend. Why are you backpedaling from this now, Tim? And then after you have to back, did you get lectured? Did you get a talking to about this? Is anybody like paying attention to the books? And now you got to pretend that's not what you're saying here? It is what you're saying. While it's unclear at this point if the book will leave open the question on whether or not Hoover was blackmailing Scott into sexual relations, he was. It doesn't mean he got away with it. I would hope that Alan Scott would be heroic enough to not bend over for J. Edgar Hoover or whatever. I don't know. This is Tim's story. These characters exist in a whole different way in Tim's head than they do have ever existed, either in reality or fiction. Preview pages obtained by Bleeding Cool do show Scott engaging in sodomy with another man in the army. Yes, and now we've got this that goes on for quite a few pages here. This is Green Lantern, everyone. Green Lantern. Oh, my God. I like how Bounding into Comics is now just like, here's the Christian point of view about sodomy. That's great. Bounding into Comics rules. I don't know what to say, guys. This guy is look, Tim, you did what you did. You basically have a scene where Alan Scott is being bullied by J. Edgar Hoover into gay sex. It is repulsive to people, to most people. When you say we outnumber them, I promise you don't. Most people will be unnerved by that. You know, it's a weird, creepy kind of you know. I don't know what goes on in this head of yours, Tim. But in any case, it was interesting because he brought ComicsGate right into it, which is fantastic for us. I got to say, I kind of punched the air when this happened because I was just like, holy shit, like things must be really, really bad if they're bringing us up again. We've kind of like lived at peace and not really paid too much attention to each other. But here we are. We have a guy from DC Comics, a guy who's writing a current DC Comics book, who's making everything all about us. It's fucking awesome. Either way, we win. Like, if the book does well because people want to own ComicsGate, it means everybody's aware of ComicsGate and they're very angry with us. That's a win. And if it doesn't, it's a win. Either way, I can't believe how great it is. It's fantastic. Yeah, like it's okay, Tim. You can do this stuff. You don't have to worry about us. If you know, we are going to complain about it. If you do something weird like this, we're going to talk about it because we have YouTube channels and we want people to know. Like, people should know that this is what, you know, DC Comics publishes now. And if they like that, good. Go enjoy. If they don't like it, they should know about it. That's all it is.